A flower does not need to speak, yet it teaches us much. When we look at a flower, we see no effort to explain itself. It simply appears, opens, and shares its presence. There are no words, no arguments, and no desire to prove value. Still, those who see it feel moved. This is the first silent lesson. True meaning is not always carried in words. Many of us live surrounded by noise, messages, and opinions. We may feel pressure to explain who we are or to defend our choices. But a flower shows us another way. Its teaching comes not through sound, but through being. It invites us to remember that life is not always about speaking, but also about being present. When we see a flower, we might notice its colors, its gentle form, and its brief life. We feel a quiet sense of peace. This peace does not come from explanation, but from the silent truth of its presence. The flower shows us that silence can hold power. If we allow ourselves to learn, we may see how silence supports us. In moments when words fail, in moments when we cannot find answers, we can remember the flower. We can trust that being present is enough. We do not need to explain everything. We do not need to force understanding. Sometimes, simply being is the greatest lesson. So the flower's silent teaching begins with this. There is wisdom in presence, without words. There is meaning in the quiet act of being here, just as we are. When we look closely at a flower, we notice how short its life is. The bud slowly opens, the petals unfold, and for a time the flower is full of beauty. Yet before long, the petals begin to fade, the colors soften, and the flower returns to the earth. This is not a failure of the flower. It is the natural way. In every petal, the truth of impermanence is written. Many of us struggle when things change. We want to hold on to moments, people, or feelings, hoping they will last forever. But the flower reminds us that nothing in this world stays the same. Change is not an enemy. It is part of the cycle of life. By watching a flower, we see that beauty is not destroyed by impermanence. It is shaped by it. Without change, there could be no bloom at all. If the petals never opened, we would never see their color. If they never fell, new buds could not grow. The brief life of a flower teaches us to appreciate each moment for what it is, knowing it will not last. This does not mean we must be sad. It means we can be grateful. We can let the passing of time remind us of how precious each day truly is. In the life of a flower, we find a mirror of our own lives. We too will rise, bloom, and eventually fade. But this truth does not need to bring fear. Instead, it can bring peace. When we accept impermanence, we can stop fighting against time and begin to live fully in the moment that is here now. When we see a flower, we may first notice its shape or its color. But if we stay with it a little longer, we notice something deeper. The flower does not try to impress us. It does not compete with other flowers, nor does it compare itself to those around it. It simply exists as it is, and in that simple being, there is great beauty. In our daily lives, many of us feel pressure to achieve, to become more, or to prove ourselves. We may compare ourselves with others, measuring our worth against what we see. This can bring stress and a sense of never being enough. But the flower shows us another path. It teaches that the act of being as we are can be enough. A wildflower in a field does not think about whether it is as bright as the rose nearby. A small blossom on the side of the road does not wish to be taller or stronger. Each one simply grows in the space it has, and in that way, each one carries its own beauty. This lesson can guide us. When we accept our place in life and allow ourselves to be as we are, we may discover a quiet freedom. We do not need to become something different to be worthy. We do not need to chase perfection to be complete. Like the flower, our beauty and meaning come from being true to what we are. The beauty of simply being is a gift that life offers us every day. When we stop chasing, when we stop comparing, we may find that the act of living as ourselves is already full of wonder. At first, a flower may seem fragile. Its petals are thin, its stem can bend in the wind, and its life is short. Yet if we look carefully, we see another truth. Despite its softness, the flower grows from the soil, reaches toward the sun, and endures rain, wind, and change. What seems delicate is also strong. Its strength does not come from hardness, but from the ability to live fully even in its fragile form. We often believe that strength means being unshakable or unbreakable. We may think we must always stand firm and never show weakness, but the flower shows us a different meaning of strength. It does not fight against its nature. It does not deny its softness. Instead, it thrives within it. Its fragility and its strength are not separate. They are one. In our own lives, we may sometimes feel fragile. We may face illness, aging, or loss. These moments can make us feel weak or uncertain. Yet like the flower, our fragility can reveal a deeper strength. To live each day, even while knowing our limits, is an act of courage. To face the passing of time with openness is a kind of strength that does not depend on control. The flower reminds us that strength is not only in power or resistance. True strength is found in the willingness to open, to bloom, and to be present, even for a short while. Fragility is not a flaw. It is part of what makes life beautiful. And within it, we may find a quiet strength that carries us through all seasons of our lives. A flower is never separate from the cycle of nature. It rises from the earth, drinks the rain, takes in the sunlight, and then returns to the soil. This rhythm is steady and unbroken. The flower is not outside of it, nor is it in control of it. Instead, it takes its place in the larger cycle and fulfills its part with quiet harmony. When we observe this, we may notice how often we resist the natural rhythm of life. We may want spring without winter, growth without decay, or gain without loss. Yet the flower shows us that every stage is needed. Without the seeds waiting in the dark soil, there can be no bloom. Without the falling of petals, there can be no fruit or renewal. The cycle is complete only when each part is allowed to play its role. In our own lives, we also move through cycles. There are times of rising, times of fullness, and times of decline. Each stage has meaning, even when it is difficult. The flower does not complain that its bloom is brief, nor does it resist when the season changes. It follows the rhythm, and in that way, it finds harmony. This lesson invites us to trust the cycles in our own journey. We do not need to hurry through one stage or cling to another. Like the flower, we can take part in the whole cycle with acceptance. Life's rhythm holds both joy and sorrow, both light and shadow, and both are needed for completeness. When we learn from the flower, we may discover that every part of the cycle has its own quiet beauty. When we look at a flower, one of the first things we notice is its stillness. It does not rush. It does not move about with purpose or chase after goals. It stands quietly in its place, opening to the sun, holding its shape, and resting in silence. In that stillness, there is a kind of calm that reaches us without words. In our own days, we often move quickly. We fill our hours with tasks, plans, and worries. We may forget that stillness is also part of life. A flower reminds us that to be alive does not always mean to be busy. Life can also be lived in moments of quiet presence. When we stand before a flower and let our attention rest there, we may feel time slow down. The noise of the mind softens, and a sense of ease can appear. The flower is not trying to teach us, yet by its quiet nature, it shows us that stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is a way of being deeply alive. We may not always be able to step away from the demands of life, yet even within our ordinary routines, we can remember the flower. We can allow a pause, a breath, a moment to rest. In doing so, we open space for peace to appear. The flower does not strive, yet its presence is full of life. We too can find that life's richness is not only in movement, but also in stillness. The bloom of a flower is brief, yet its stillness leaves a lasting impression. It is a gentle reminder that we do not always need to run. Sometimes, to stand quietly in the present is enough. A flower does not appear overnight. It begins as a small seed hidden in the soil. Days pass, then weeks, sometimes months, before the first signs of life push through the ground. Even then, the growth is gradual. The stem rises, the leaves unfold, and only after much time and care does the bud finally open. In this slow process, the flower offers us a lesson in patience. In our lives, we often wish for quick results. We want change to happen immediately, and we grow restless when progress feels slow. Yet nature does not hurry, and still everything is accomplished. The flower shows us that true growth cannot be forced. It comes at its own pace, shaped by season, weather, and time. If the seed were rushed to bloom, it would never open fully. If we try to force the stages of life, we may miss the natural unfolding that gives depth and beauty to the result. The patience of a flower is not weakness. It is trust in the process. It waits in darkness, it endures storms, and it grows quietly until the right moment arrives. We too can learn to honor the slow rhythm of our own growth. Whether it is healing from pain, learning new wisdom, or moving through changes, the process cannot be hurried. Like the flower, we may need time in the soil before we are ready to rise, and when the time is right, our own blossoms will open. The patience of a flower is a gentle guide. It tells us that delay is not failure, and waiting is not wasted. Every step, even the unseen ones, carries us toward the moment when our own lives can open fully into bloom. A flower may seem like a small and separate being, yet it is deeply connected to everything around it. Its roots drink water from the soil, its leaves breathe the air, and its petals open to the sun. Bees come to gather nectar, and birds may carry its seeds to new places. In this way, the flower is not alone. It exists because of countless unseen connections. When we look at a flower, we are also looking at the rain that fell, the sunlight that traveled across space, the earth that held the seed, and the living creatures that helped it grow. All of these elements are present in its bloom. The flower is a reminder that life is never separate. Each being is supported by many others. In our daily lives, we may sometimes feel isolated, as if we must carry everything by ourselves. But the flower shows us another truth. Just as it depends on the soil, the sky, and the rain, we too are part of a web of connection. Our lives are touched by the work of others, by the care of nature, and by the passing of time. Nothing exists alone. This realization can bring a sense of comfort. When we know we are connected, we understand that we do not need to bear life's weight alone. The flower does not stand apart from the world. It is an expression of the world itself, and so are we. By seeing the quiet connection in a flower, we may begin to notice the same connection in our own lives. Each breath, each meal, each relationship is part of a greater whole. To see this truth is to see that life itself is one shared bloom. Every flower carries within it the promise of change. The bud becomes the blossom becomes the fading petals, and the petals return to the earth. This is not a tragedy, but a natural rhythm. The flower does not resist its own passing. It accepts change as part of its journey. In this acceptance, there is a quiet dignity. In our own lives, change often comes with fear or resistance. we may try to hold on to the past or protect ourselves from the unknown future. Yet the flower reminds us that change is not something to fight against. It is simply the way life continues. Without change, no seed could grow, and no new bloom could ever appear. When we see a flower drop its petals, we may feel a sense of loss. But if we look closer, we see that the falling petals enrich the soil. They prepare the ground for future life. What appears to be an ending is also a beginning. This lesson can soften our hearts when we face our own changes, whether in health, relationships, or time itself. The gentle acceptance of a flower shows us a path. We too can meet change not with fear, but with trust. We can understand that endings and beginnings are not separate, but two sides of one truth. To accept change is not to give up, but to walk in harmony with life as it unfolds. The flower whispers this lesson as it opens and fades. Embrace change with grace, and you will discover that even in endings, there is the seed of new life waiting quietly to grow. When we bring together the lessons of a flower, we see a simple yet profound truth. In its silence, it shows us presence. In its brief life, it teaches us impermanence. In its fragility, it reveals strength. In its stillness, it offers peace. In its slow growth, it guides us toward patience. In its connection, it reminds us that nothing stands alone. And in its gentle acceptance of change, it points us to the natural rhythm of life. The flower does not ask to be admired. It does not seek reward or recognition. Yet by simply living as it is, it becomes a teacher to all who pause and notice. We too can learn from this. Our lives do not need to be grand or perfect to carry meaning. By being present, by allowing life to unfold, we may touch others more deeply than we realize. As we close these reflections, I want to offer my heartfelt gratitude to those who have taken the time to listen, to those who have shown support through kind comments, through likes, through subscribing to this channel, and even through gifts such as super thanks or membership. I am deeply touched. Each gesture is felt with warmth, and it helps these words reach others who may also find meaning in them. Thank you for walking this path with me, even if only for a short while. Just as the flower blooms and fades yet leaves behind a gentle memory, may these words remain with you in some small way. And may the simple beauty of a flower continue to guide us all toward peace and understanding in our daily lives.